We have the former finance minister of Jamaica, Dr. Omar Davies.
My refereeing career ended before it started. I don't know Bailey personally. I know Butler. But the situation is unacceptable. And some of the things have just been embarrassing. I don't know where it has come from, but this thing, it's invariably leads to fights. I had a player who I'd pick a coach and allow him to get fined if necessary. Jamaican football. It's just too rough and too fights, too many unnecessary fights. So this the success of Cavalier and Mount Pleasant would indicate where we have to head.
Jamaica have a lifeline! How about this?
Big up Gunnaz, I hear that. Don't know if it's a Gunnaz myself, but big up Gunnaz.
Alright, greetings and salutations all my Gunnaz family. Today we have our first exclusive interview, hopefully the first of many interviews that we'll see. And we have the former finance minister of Jamaica, Dr. Omar Davies. Dr. Davies, how are you doing, sir?
I'm fine, how are you?
Boy, Reggae Boyz just lost yesterday at the time of recording, so it was a tough night. But
were you surprised?
yes, I was surprised with the changes that Coach Haldrimson made, but yeah, I don't think I was surprised with the result itself.
Well, he has to work with what he has.
True.
I think what he had in that game was enough to beat that Mexico team. So I was very, very sad after the game for sure.
Sad, mad, disappointed, angry.
Yeah.
But yeah, so for this interview, I want to talk about certain things like Arnett Gardens, the Reggae Boyz team, your involvement in football, and just overall what you think football does for the Jamaican community. So my first question for you is, do you have any footballing experience, sport experience in Jamaica? Any interest in Jamaican sports in general?
Well, interest in terms of playing or just interest?
I would say interest generally. Like
Interest generally. If it's interest generally, I'm interested in virtually all sports. I followed, when I lived in the US, followed baseball. I still follow American football, but I've a general interest in sports for a variety of reasons. So a general interest.
So coming up and like growing up as a youngster, were there like specific types of sports that you just felt more connected to or you loved more?
For a variety of reasons, I love track and field. I'm a big fan of track and field, and so then I grew into football. In terms of cricket, I grew up in a period when the West Indian team gave you a reason to be proud, and but this is partly from my father was a very big sports fan. So my family are sports fan. And where I grew up, right across the street was the village playground. So there was always and Clarendon, where I grew up, was the most dominant country parish in terms of cricket. So I saw lots of the great sportsmen playing in they've come off a curveball match. And so I had a continuing exposure to sports, but at that stage, at the highest level at cricket.
And generally, like with football now, like, because you're a football YouTube channel.
Yes, I know that.
We're here to talk specifically about football. Yeah. Before, like, off here, you mentioned your course in refereeing. How did that come about?
Oh, that is after growing up. But if you're interested, I'll tell you how that came.
Yeah, for sure.
It came out as I I was always interested, and once the JFF or whatever it was called then put out a request for persons who were interested in it. So I enrolled. I didn't tell my wife. She wanted to say, where are you going every evening? And so there was a famous, you talk to all the referees, I tell you about Bulla shows. He rode his bicycle to give the lectures. So that came about, and I did well in the exam, and I was given my badge and my shorts and everything. And the day before I was my first official match, some spectator pulled a gun on the referee. And my wife said, no, you are not going. So that my refereeing career ended before it started. But I tell you, my good friend Peter Prendergast at the time is senior in terms of refereeing.
So I wanted to ask, you're in your Arnett Gardens chairman shirt.
Yes.
So
I should give it to Mark. Yes.
But as past chairman and still a huge fan, as I assume, how did that change the community? Like, how did that make you feel?
Well, I didn't start the love for football in the South Central community. That whole geographic space has always been known for sports. Boystown is in the constituent, although Boystown is a separate footballing entity.
Right.
So, but several of the great footballers from that era were also cricketers, great cricketers. And as a matter of fact, they played whatever there was, anything eye-hand coordination. They were good at that. So, Arnett came about was started by my predecessor, Tony Spaulding. But it was interesting that you had this team, but playing on the most primitive condition. The field was stones and all that. And I recall them showing there was a goal scored by one of the Arnett forwards. And I was so excited that when I came home, I told my wife, you have to watch this. And she watched it, but she wasn't excited. She said, well, you shouldn't be playing they should not love football on a field like that. I come to accept these second-rate conditions, but she didn't. So I decided I would keep myself quiet until I could do something about it. But in South St. Andrew, as it was in Tivoli, the member of parliament, you can't just be an interested party. You have to be
On the ground.
on the ground. Some took it to both Spaulding, Mr. Spaulding and Mr. Seattle, both the seats, took it to an extreme level. And like Mr. Seattle would pick his team.
Yeah.
I had a clear rule. I'd pick a coach and
Allow him to
get fined if necessary. And so, but that whole era, sports and the glory of the community, is so wrapped up in success. If you think of it, in several instances, it's the only good thing happening for those communities. The only time you hear of them for positive reasons is when they do well in sports. Sometimes it's also the bad thing. You hear about fights or the negative. But sports play a very, very important role. And I could give you a whole list of players, or national players that play cricket, football, etc. And so I inherited a tradition which you couldn't just break away from. But what I did was sort of different in terms of, like, the facility is the second best, if not the best facility in Jamaica.
Tough.
Yes.
For the standards that we have here in Jamaica.
No, for instance, I will later on I will mention who helped me, but they weren't doing standards for Jamaica. I mean, like Arnett standards are international, are standards for an international team.
And we've seen it because we've seen even the Jamaican unders teams as well. They train there.
I think the national team should play there.
They have friendly competitions and stuff like that at
Yes.
the Arnett Gardens.
And the lights work. So that was one of the questions that I had, because I think with the national stadium in the current conditions, you know, they're hiring phase 3 to put up lights. And you know, the national stadium, the grandstand has not been touched or fixed. I was hearing when I went for the press conference since it was built. So, you know, with Arnett Gardens, what was put in place for Arnett Gardens to have upkeep? Because the field is still beautiful. The stands are pretty well kept. When I look at the lights, I'm almost blinded still. So what is the difference between Arnett and the national stadium?
Well, let me put it this way. I have long learned that anything, whether it be a house or a vehicle or so, unless you have a maintenance program, it doesn't make sense how much money you spend on putting up the structure or acquiring the structure. So we have a strong maintenance program. There are things I would like to improve, but the stadium and the facilities. And by the way, you see the field, but it's a complex thing.
Right.
We have netball, basketball.
Yeah.
There's a whole
Training ground as well.
Yes.
Yeah.
And
I played on that training ground.
so you just have to have a maintenance program. And I mean, one of the interesting things about the lights, it's I probably shouldn't even say it, but a local guy literally was trying the thing and change the lights. So
No, that's crazy.
That's simple.
No, I just have one more question before you go ahead. In terms of cricket, I don't know this, but what is the team connected to Arnett Gardens? If just location.
Well, I should mention something about like the politics in that. Before me, you had South Central, but you had two distinct entities. There was Arnett Gardens, Jonestown, and then you had Rima, where Boystown is located.
Right.
Now, Boystown, it's most of the stars of Boystown played both games at the highest level. So you got like Carl Brown, the former, he played cricket and football, and so you had the great College Street is from Boystown. So Arnett, by the time Tony Spalding became member of Parliament, football was emerging as a more popular sport. So he never placed as much emphasis. So there's no, why is there a cricket and football tradition in Boystown? There's no cricket tradition in Arnett because Arnett represented a period where football was emerging as the most popular, as the more popular sport. So there's no similar, there is a big support base there used to be for Boystown. The great West Indian captain and batsman Frank Ward, went and played for Boys Town at club level. And the founder of Boys Town, a Methodist pastor, Hugh Sherlock, he played for Boys Town. So in cricket. And then you have had people, as I mentioned, Carl Brown. Carl Brown's brother, Les Brown, died a couple of years ago. He was, and he could do any sporting activity. He excelled at that. So that's there was cricket, but never at Arnett per se. Okay. So Arnett has come through as a footballing club.
Well, I want to ask you about like the plethora of talent that you have coming out of Arnett Gardens. So we've seen a huge host of players currently that are now being integrated into the national team setup. So the likes of my mentor for hidden talent mentorship, Joel Cunningham, I always have to shout him out. Then there is Kyle Dixon and also Ronaldo Cephas. Now, how proud of you as a chairman or former chairman to see these players being integrated into the national team and also playing in Europe or going to Europe soon potentially with Kyle Dixon and potentially playing at the highest level in European football.
I'm very, very proud. That part of our administration we need to get at a more professional level. As much as I take pleasure in those who have reached a certain level, perhaps equally, I feel equally strongly, but for the wrong reasons, for young people, young men who have the potential but don't. Part of the reason is that the community often proclaim them as, and it affects their assessment of themselves, often proclaim them as stars long before they have
full potential.
And then there are things which we need to do in developing them. It's a problem not just for Arnett but for Jamaican football. It's just too rough and too fights, too many unnecessary fights. So these are the things which you have to work on to take it to another level. So getting the talent through is one major step. The second is for them to start and for us to inculcate in them the importance of your behavior and discipline. This is something which is, and not just for Arnett, but it's something which is something we have to work on.
But do you think things like media training and just being able to, market yourself as a brand, because football has just changed from just being on the field to almost half of it being off the field?
Well, it still helps to have some skills. That's the answer. But yes, that is. But even prior to being able to articulate and market yourself, it's just discipline that. I don't know where it has come from, but it's something thing. It's invariably leads to fights and you. I used to put. I didn't see anything happen. I used to see cards flashing. It's something which and there's a whole thing of machismo in the sense that you fear that if you don't respond,
You'll be called upon.
yes. So these are things which we need to work on. T. Davis was very strong in terms of that, and so, but it is something which worries me about taking. It's part of the environment. that sort of aspect. They don't see the negative aspect of that behavior. Not just to their career, but to there are times when our whole period of gate receipts are low because some going to fight and you try to. We have done deliberate things to attract people to Arnett. As I say, when you see the facility, we went through a period of getting uptown to come to the Pegasus and then we bust them down. But the moment there's an incident, then that crowd disappears for too long. But it's very hard to explain, not just to players, but to the community, the point you made, that the football has gone beyond just, it's not just individual behavior, but the behavior of the community. And so you spend a lot of time explaining, and you think you have made it, and then a man says, "Oh, nobody will tell me about me," and without retaliating. So that's a major challenge which I face, and the club still faces.
I think it's become a norm, that type of behavior. As sad as it is, because Dylan and I were speaking just before recording. We were going through our analytics and our comments on our YouTube channel, and that what you just said is literally the type of comments that we're getting just for making videos and producing videos about Reggae Boyz and football. If someone does not agree with your opinion, you get that,
and it's just
right?
base. It's
just natural. So like for us, we're numb to it. When we see it, we just laugh.
Right? Yes, but the only problem is that that's you love the game, but there are people who say, but later for that, and so it's a major change, and partly they are boosted by community members who don't play and so on. But a problem we face, and I particularly know about Arnett, is that everybody was, where you come from? The foundation, so he don't feel he should pay. The entrance fees, pittance, and it's you have to really love it to push you. Yes.
Well, I want to delve deeper into the Reggae Boyz because we have, even though this is Gunnaz YouTube channel.
Yes, I noticed
that. Mainly, we started off doing our song content and we branched off for obvious reasons. We had to feed the audience. We did one Reggae Boyz video and we just had a totally different audience. So we had to just go ahead and start doing this.
Well, you shouldn't know.
Yeah,
yes.
Right, for sure. So
if you want a big audience, make it Arsenal.
Yeah. No.
Make it an Arnett.
Yeah,
and this is, I'm not joking, but if you check through, Arnett is by far the most popular. Watch when Arnett is in a playoff or so.
Yeah, for sure.
Stadium full.
But I have very strong opinions, so I don't want, we just mentioned the negativity and stuff, I don't want to say certain opinions and we can't go all that much, right?
No man, you're good with me.
Yeah, but getting back to the point of the Reggae Boyz now, so that we're a more Reggae Boyz centric channel on YouTube, and I just wanted to touch on the obvious situation that is going around right now. Not so much on the field, but the Leon Bailey, the Craig Butler, the JFF and Arnett Gardens situation. Like every single Jamaican has their own viewpoint and their own perspective on the matter. How do you think? First of all, what do you think of the situation? And secondly, how do you think Jamaica should move forward?
Well, it is, I don't know Bailey personally, I know Butler very well, so I say that I don't want to get in on personalities, but the situation is unacceptable. Whatever you think, there is a JFF, they have made more than their fair share of blunders in terms, not just with Bailey and Butler, but with the Reggae Girls, etc. There is need, and by the way, I know Ricketts very well. He went to
Your alma mater.
went to Glenmore and from Clarendon and so. So I can talk to him and all that. And I've raised some of the issues. I think there needs to be a set of wise old men, grey hair, and so, to intervene in some of these other matters. But it's imperative that once there is a democratically elected administration, that their role be respected and followed through. Somehow, Captain Burrell didn't have, I don't know if it's his arm train, didn't have a severe problem. And it's something which the JFF hierarchy have to work on, the notion that the people who get ahead have to be in a little clique, and they do it for their benefits, their personal benefit. And some of the things have just been embarrassing and so on. So I think there's not necessarily a set of businessmen, but football fans, people who aren't seeking anything for themselves to be established as a guideline. But it must mean that people are willing to settle differences. Some of the differences are quite silly. I listened to an interview with Bonishaw, and I was very impressed. I mean, I couldn't find anything I would disagree with, and she wasn't demanding any special preference. She was just indicating things. And I know some people who would be willing to become involved, not because they want positions and so on, but they feel that Jamaica's football is not benefiting to the extent it could. And that's one thing I need. But there are a lot of people who are very interested in the future of the game and development of the game, but who aren't willing to subject themselves to personal vilification and obvious question. That's why. And then you look, that is a totally foreign sort of thesis. The J3, although from time to time they have their squabbles, but you don't get the same situation. I don't know what is the difference, but we need to put a set of things. And I'd hope that after the struggle between Ricketts and the guy who ran against him, I thought that we had reached a state of case. Next chapter, so. But there's need for us to clean the slate and move on. I'm deliberately speaking cautiously because I realize that Butler is a man with very strong views, but in track and field, you could say Francis has a strong view, but still,
it's coming Saturday as well.
Yes, so, but that's a critical thing. Once upon a time, there was a feeling that certain football clubs got preferential treatment in terms of the promotion of their players. I don't hear that as much any longer. I think the success of Cavalier and Mount Pleasant would indicate where we have to head in terms of organizing the clubs, etc. But we can't continue. One thing I think all of us can agree, we can't continue in this way because we haven't reached anywhere yet, and you're squabbling about everything in this way, and it's something which we just have to work on. And there's more I could say, there's more I know, but I think I'll let it be.
Alright.
I think so we went to the stadium, me and a couple of friends, they kind of couldn't make it to watch the Reggae Boyz qualifier game. And
I didn't make it because I found it a major embarrassment.
Which is one thing. I wasn't even going to talk about the actual logistics but I think one of the biggest things that I realized, which I'm going to ask about, is what is our football culture? I think in track and field and champs, you hear the stadium light up. You know, like you can't get a moment's silence. But when you go and watch Reggae Boyz play, you could literally drop a pin.
I want to say, just before you answer that as well, I want to also add, because we've seen pictures and we've seen, like back in the 98 period, how I've never seen the stadium full like that for a football match.
Mm-hmm. So
it's just, I can't imagine what it would feel like to be in that type of atmosphere. Do you think Jamaica can get back to that?
Exactly.
The basic talent in terms of athletic ability and so on exists. But one of the things you learn is that that's not enough. It's not just in Jamaica, you can see to that a lot of Brazilian players who just say, whatever happened to him? In that, unless you have that discipline, whether it comes from your home club or wherever. But the talent is there. But it's A, harnessing the talent, and B, getting them to understand that the world is not going to wait around. You know, so either you behave yourself and comply, or you'll be out and it goes right up the ladder. Yes, the 98, I was around for that. And it was an interesting, there must be something about Clarendon, because Borrell is also out of Clarendon, you know, it was, so I don't know whether Clarendon has a lock on the presidency, but he was able to do two things. One, he was able to draft a lot of persons who weren't necessarily looking out for themselves, but just were volunteer to come into the whole administration of the football. He relied. Simoes was able to blend the importees with the local players, but the truth is that increasingly our talent pool is such that we can find persons, but we need to have them playing at an international level younger. Mm-hmm. So you don't get a 28-year-old promising baller. That's so true.
I think I had one last question. In terms of funding and for another government coming through, I don't really care which government it is, but in terms of fixing Sabina's lights, fixing stadium's lights, what can they do? Is there anything that has been put in place before? Because, you know, we talk about these talents, but at the end of the day, after Manning Cup, where's the funding?
No, there is, this is something which I feel strongly about. There is, when I was in the cabinet on the night watch, I established a foundation, the Chase Fund. Chase means culture, health, the arts, sports, and education. And a chunk of that money, it's really taxes which the government collected and letting, but it said no, we're going to put this in a special fund. And there's supposed to be a big chunk of money to go to sports. I don't know if there are any announced rules. I don't know the rule changes, but that fund is now, well, it's certainly not going to sports in the way it should be. And even if the demands are great, the manner in which the Chase Fund is established, it allows you to be flexible, so you can change the percentage and so on as you go along. And that to me represents a major priority investment. I mean, it's you can't have the Western relays which was once based in Montego being run at GC Foster. You know, there's or you want to play a football match. I mean, apart from the stadium and Sabine, you know, there's just
there's going to be a huge disconnect as well from the fans in that area as well, right? A lot of them won't be able to travel, and it's just
or even believe that, you know.
Yeah, but it shouldn't be. And Mr. Grange is my friend and so on, but the explanations just don't add up. And so that the whoever used to say, whoever it is has to understand that sports, every parish capital should have a place.
Yes.
So this is and maintained through a system. I mean, I was in my plan to go to the match. I was just embarrassed. I mean, it must mean, I mean, for you to be to those unilaterally postpone, advance, not postpone, the start time and all that. Think of the people who are covering it. You say external media houses to change all of that. It's just unacceptable.
Funds as well, plans and
yeah,
because I was planning to go as well. And because I work as well, I could not make it at that time.
Yeah,
and even initially for the 6:30 kickoff, I would have had to take time off work. But for that kickoff, it makes sense just take the day.
Yes.
I'm not doing that. Right?
Well, it's that to me. I must confess, I was going to say pleasantly surprised, but surprised that there's been very little reaction to this, because it's an embarrassment. You can't understand. It's not that yesterday you inspected the lights and discovered that they had to be fixed.
And I was there at the moment in time where they changed they confirmed that the time was being changed, because it was crazy to see. The guy came up from CONCACAF and with just a little board and said, he looked at the lights up there and he said, okay. And then he just gave it to the coach and said, yeah, the game has to be advanced.
I never strict on that. I learned, not that I've benefited from it, but I learned it's quite scientifically measured, you know.
Right.
It's in terms, and the person who put in all lights, Chris Beck, Bicknell from Tampa, he almost got certified in lighting technology and so on, because you are recreating like daylight by the light on a square foot and so on. It's just, and it's not that this society is lacking in the technical capability to do it. We know we just have to plan it and do it in an hour. And every day you suddenly find everybody jumping over themselves on convoluted explanation with the ship different, the this and so that was embarrassing, and it, if anything, typified our need to take our administration of sports to another level. That one is an example. And then there's need for another, it can't be that Arnett is the alternative to the stadium.
Right. Or Stadium East.
But at the same time, if you look at the turnout for the playoffs, so the Premier League, there is an audience. I don't like Savannah as a football ground, but
and the players don't seem to like it either.
No,
couldn't be good for them.
And it's not because they steal their stuff. There are things, there are certain minimum standards you have to meet if you're going to play in the international game. And I'm a proud Jamaican. I get embarrassed that you have your match scheduled for this time, and then you get moved up. It just look amateurish.
The final questions?
We've come to see you. It was a pleasure having you on still.
Okay, well, let's hope that you make lots of money and you can put in the lights. Well, if you know, one uninteresting thing I talk about the lights. The people know whenever I go to Arnett, my first thing is to count the lights and the wood show, because Chris Bicknell is in charge of order, and we always have a stock of bulbs and all that. And you find capabilities and people willing to work with your people searching, for example. I probably shouldn't mention the name because people want them to do the same, but if you see this Arnett field, it was literally gravel and so. No, we have some before and after pictures. But Robert Levy from Jamaica Brothers, he was introducing his I don't know what to call it, fertilizer. And he just took over that thing, and we have moved it beyond because there are professionals who do this, and people who work on the golf courses and so on. But there are persons willing to contribute, but it's very important that each of the clubs, well, there is some about each of the clubs. It knows the number of clubs just go up to Premier League and then drop down. All these things you have to work in order to build a football culture, which is not just 11 man kicking a ball around, but it's a whole structure in that regard. So.
Well, thank you so much for.
So now that you're Gunnaz, another year to flop.
Well, not. I guess that's the perfect way to end it, people. Thank you so much for viewing. If you have stayed this long, thank you, sir. And yeah, on to the next one.
So
Jamaica have a lifeline. How about this?
Big up Gunnaz, I hear that. Don't know some of the Gunnaz, but say, but big up Gunnaz.